Good morning, Steve Reed in Chicago with the morning grain comments. Well, markets are mixed overnight with beans maybe down a little bit, corn up a little bit, wheat anywhere from unchanged in Chicago, down in Kansas City to up in Minneapolis. All these prices are lower from the high of the overnight trade. Markets are still trying to figure out the direction after the USDA's November report. For beans, it was a shocker in that they actually lowered the crop instead of expectations of a higher crop. They also lowered exports and basically had a carryout of 340 versus 320, and the average guess close to 370. There's still some private people out there from a soybean standpoint that has a carryout somewhere between 370 and 400 because of lower export demand. The USDA pretty much kept South American numbers unchanged, but they did show that for the crop that's being planted right now in Brazil, their export numbers could increase to 94 million tons versus 81.7. We also noted that Matif corn and Canada rapeseed prices were about a little bit higher, and they left the world crop at 67 million tons versus 72 last year. They did put the China soybean imports at 99.8, but they lowered next year's 1 million tons to 100. Over in the corn, they actually did raise the corn crop, but they lowered, but they raised ethanol, which lowered the carryout to 1493 versus 1500. You have a lot of people that are around 1100 because of higher exports and higher ethanol numbers. In the wheat, it was all about world wheat numbers. The world wheat stocks to usage ratio is a record low for exporters at 12%. Import demand was raised 2 million tons, but they also raised EU and Russia exports 1 million ton each. So there's a lot of question marks about that, especially since in order for Russia to export wheat, they're going to have to significantly increase their export prices. Right now, the domestic price is higher and farmers are selling into the domestic market. So we don't really have a lot of exports coming out of Russia unless that price rallies. And if that price rallies, it probably will rally U.S. futures. As far as next year is concerned, most people are looking at a carryout somewhere around, let's call it 1,500 versus the baseline number of 1935. Beans around 430 versus the USDA's baselines of 300. And in the wheat, looking at probably a 640 carryout next year versus the USDA's baseline of 636. So again, a lot will depend upon now South American weather, where we're going to put the supply at. We'll be looking at China demand, and we'll be looking at the outside markets for influence too, with crude oil a little bit lower and the dollar a little bit higher in front of the consumer price index data today. As always, these are my thoughts, not those of ADM Investor Services. Have a safe and profitable trading day, and remember, always treat people like you yourself would like to be treated.